Karen Whitmore stood knee-deep in muddy pond water at 6:47 am, her pristine white blazer now resembling a Jackson Pollock painting, screaming at a bewildered construction worker who was filming her with his phone. "This is private property," she shrieked, waving a soggy manila folder above her head like a battle flag. 20 minutes earlier, she'd been the picture of suburban authority, clipboard in hand, measuring tape at the ready, marching toward the Riverside Meadows Community Bridge with the determination of a general heading into battle. The bridge reconstruction was 3 days ahead of schedule, and Karen had spotted what she was certain was a code violation level 5. The new wooden railings were stained honey oak instead of the HOA-approved colonial cherry. "Ma'am, please step back from the equipment," the foreman had called out as Karen climbed onto the half-finished bridge, her sensible heels clicking against the temporary plywood decking. "I am Karen Whitmore, Homeowners Association Vice President, and this bridge is in dire CT violation of Section 12.47 of our community standards." She pulled out her phone, already composing the scathing email to the City Planning Committee in her head. That's when she'd noticed the workers weren't listening. They were staring past her with wide eyes. The support beam beneath the temporary decking had groaned once, twice, then snapped with a crack that echoed across the morning air. Karen had exactly 1.3 seconds to register the sensation of falling before she hit the water with a splash that sent ducks scattering in every direction. Now, as she stood dripping and furious in the shallow pond, her perfectly curled hair plastered to her skull, Karen felt something she hadn't experienced in her 12 years as an HOA board member. Complete and utter humiliation. The construction workers were barely containing their laughter. Mrs. Chen from 1247 Maple was recording from her kitchen window. Even worse, she could see her neighbor Janet Rodriguez approaching with that insufferable smirk she'd worn ever since Karen had cited her for her aggressively purple front door. "Need some help there, Karen?" Janet called out, not bothering to hide her amusement. Karen's jaw clenched. This wasn't just about the bridge anymore. This was about respect, authority, and the very foundation of civilized suburban living. She'd spent years building her reputation as the neighborhood's guardian of standards, the woman who kept property values high and chaos at bay. She wouldn't let one little slip-up destroy everything. "The bridge reconstruction is halted until this violation is corrected," she declared, trudging toward shore with as much dignity as a pond-soaked woman could muster. "I'm calling an emergency HOA meeting for tonight." As she squelched past Janet, Karen caught the flash of something in her neighbor's eyes. Not just amusement, but something sharper. Something that looked almost like anticipation. The war for Riverside Meadows was about to begin. By 7 p.m., Karen's living room had been transformed into a battlefield command center. She changed into her Navy power suit, the one that had intimidated countless contractors and code violators, and arranged her evidence across the coffee table. Photographs of the incorrectly stained railings, printed emails highlighting the specific violation codes, and a laminated copy of the community charter that she'd been waving around like a sword. "This isn't just about wood stain," she announced to the 12 residents who'd shown up for the emergency meeting, her voice carrying the gravitas of someone addressing the United Nations. "This is about the integrity of our community standards." But something was different tonight. Usually, her neighbors sat quietly, nodding along while she outlined violations and necessary actions. Tonight, they were whispering among themselves, exchanging glances that made Karen's stomach tighten. Janet Rodriguez sat in the front row, arms crossed, wearing that same enigmatic smile from this morning. "Karen," she said, her voice honey-sweet with underlying steel, "before we discuss bridge stains, maybe we should talk about your recent performance review." The room went silent. Karen felt her heart skip. Performance review? Well, yes. Janet pulled out her own folder, notably thicker than Karen's. "See, after your morning swim, a few of us got to talking. We started looking into some of your recent HOA decisions, like the $50,000 budget allocation for community beautification that somehow turned into new patio furniture for your backyard. That was approved by the board, a board consisting of you, your sister, and Mrs. Patterson, who you carpooled with to the casino every Thursday until she moved to Florida last month, interrupted Tom Brennan from Unit 15. He'd never spoken up at a meeting before, but now his voice carried unexpected authority. Funny thing about Mrs. Patterson, she left you a little parting gift. Janet smiled wider and produced a manila envelope. She recorded your last conversation, the one where you discussed creative accounting and keeping the sheep in line. Karen's world tilted. Mrs. Patterson, sweet, quiet Mrs. Patterson, who'd rubber-stamped every one of Karen's proposals for 3 years, had been recording her. The betrayal hit harder than her morning plunge into the pond. "This is ridiculous," Karen stammered, but her voice had lost its commanding edge. "I've dedicated years to this community. I've maintained property values, enforced standards. You've terrorized half the neighborhood over mailbox heights while embezzling community funds." Janet shot back, standing up. "The bridge? That's city property, Karen. You have zero authority over municipal construction projects, but you've been so drunk on your little power trips that you actually convinced yourself you run this whole town." The room erupted in murmurs of agreement. Karen looked around at faces that had once shown her deference, now reflecting everything from anger to disgust to, worst of all, pity. "I want a vote of no confidence," Janet announced. "All in favor of removing Karen Whitmore from the HOA board?" 11 hands shot up immediately. As the meeting dissolved into discussions of new leadership and financial audits, Karen slipped out her back door into the night air. She walked to the edge of her property, where she could see the half-finished bridge illuminated by construction lights. For the first time in years, she felt truly small. 3 weeks later, Karen sat in her Honda Civic outside the Riverside Meadows Community Center, watching through the windows as Janet Rodriguez led what should have been her HOA meeting. The new board was discussing the upcoming Fall Festival, an event Karen had organized for 7 consecutive years. Her phone buzzed. Another email from her lawyer about the embezzlement charges. The FBI had gotten involved after Janet's audit revealed the missing community funds had been funneled through shell companies to pay for Karen's kitchen renovation, her daughter's college tuition, and a time shared in Cabo she'd convinced herself she'd earned through her tireless community service. The worst part wasn't the legal trouble, it was the crushing realization that she'd become the villain in her own story. She'd started with genuine intentions, wanting to maintain their beautiful community, but somewhere along the way, power had become an addiction stronger than her morning coffee. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Karen Whitmore. "Yes. This is Miranda Chen from Sunset Hills Estates. I understand you have extensive experience in community management." Karen's heart jumped. Sunset Hills was the premium community across town. Bigger houses, wealthier residents, higher stakes. Yes. Though I should mention I'm dealing with some legal complications." "Oh, we know all about Riverside Meadows," Miranda laughed. "Honestly, that's exactly why we're interested. You see, our current HOA president thinks she runs the place like her personal kingdom. We need someone who knows how to handle difficult personalities." Karen stared at the community center, where Janet was probably discussing approved flower varieties and crosswalk maintenance with democratic input from actual residents. It looked so civilized, so boring. "What exactly are you proposing?" Karen asked. "Consultant position. Help us restructure our board, review our current leadership. 6-month contract. Very generous compensation. Think of it as community management expertise." Through her windshield, Karen could see the completed bridge. The railings gleamed honey oak in the afternoon sun, and residents were walking across it, chatting and laughing. It looked wrong to her, too casual, too unregulated. Where were the posted rules about weight limits and approved crossing hours? "I'm interested," Karen heard herself say, as she drove toward Sunset Hills for her interview. Karen caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her old confident smile was creeping back. Maybe she'd learned from her mistakes at Riverside Meadows. Maybe this time, she'd be smarter about covering her tracks. Or maybe some people never really change. They just find new neighborhoods to conquer. The Honda disappeared around the corner, leaving only the faint echo of her laugh hanging in the air like a promise of storms yet to come.